our workshop on the Smart Bond Act. If you would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members, may we please have a motion to move out of executive session? All in favor? Okay, motion's passed. You have an agenda in front of you. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda tonight? Then may we have a motion to accept the agenda? All in favor? Opposed? All right. Well, in 2014, in the State of the State address, Governor Cuomo called for New York State to invest $2 billion in its schools through a Smart Bond Act. Now, this is an initiative that will finance educational technology, which the governor believes will provide students access to the latest technology and connectivity needed to succeed and be connected in a global economy. Now, a commission was set up by this act, and it released details outlining how school districts could invest the money allocated to each district. Our workshop tonight will explain what Webster's goals are for using these funds, the process the district needs to go through to follow and to get these monies, what the current plan is for using these allocations, and the opportunity for the public has to comment on the district's plan before the Board of Education adopts the plan, which will be sent to Albany for their review and approval. So with that being said, are we turning to you, Brian, or okay, we'll go to Brian.
Thank you. And I just want to introduce who's up here with us that have helped in the initial stages. Brian Zimmer, our Director of Instructional Technology, Mr. Neil Flood, our Director of Security, and Mr. Blaine Cunningham, Director of Facilities. Since we've gotten direction over the summer, we've met several times to kind of try to map out a course with the funds that were allocated to us and really dig in, read what is and is not allowed, and really try to get into the weeds and come up with a plan that best serves the district. So our goal is just to kind of review the Smart Bond process, have a public and answer kind of question period to open to see if there's any general questions. Take that public input and then just kind of go over where we want to go with based on our early brainstorming. We've met with Technology Committee, Safety Committee, so we've had some input already, met with the administrator group, and gotten input from a wide variety of stakeholders. So as Mr. Suffoletto alluded to already, what is the Smart Bond? So in January of 2014, Governor Andrew Cuomo called for New York State to invest $2 billion in schools through the Smart Schools Bond Act to really push us to the 21st century skills. So voters approved the Bond Act November of 2014, a year ago, and really the process started to pick up steam this summer when the regulations and process came out.
So overall, over the last few months, what we've been working on is really determining what our ultimate goals are for this financial resource that we've received from the state. Through the discussions, one of the early indications that we wanted to try to venture away from was purchasing devices, because we know that over time could cause a major shortfall for us as a district. So then we started to turn to what are the things that we can do with these resources to really get us ready for 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, so we're not creating these shortfalls over a short amount of time. We know that devices currently are only lasting between 3 and 4 years is the average lifespan of a device. So we met with Neil and Blaine, as well as other groups, like Brian said, really want to focus on how we can go forward with using all of this technology to support learning for kids and really tie it back to putting our kids in the best possible opportunity and environment to make sure we're getting them ready for college and career-ready skills. So in doing so, what we wanted to do is take an opportunity to show you what some of our thoughts were. This is a video we found from the National Institute, and we've shown this to several key groups about how education is now changing with the use of technology to support as an augmentative tool to really help our kids grow and to help our teachers teach. So take a second to watch us, and then we'll continue on going. So that last quote about making our schools as dynamic as the world around us, that's been really vibrant for all of us as we've shown that to many groups, because we really want to prepare for the future. Not just look to tomorrow, but look towards down the road of how we make our kids really ready for that next step. The other important part of that video that struck a chord with not only me but our district technology committee is how much those 21st century skills align to our essential skills that we are currently deploying as a district to show the real importance of what do we want our kids to walk out of Webster with. We think about the perseverance, the collaboration. It's really two big technology skills that really will help our kids as we go forward with teaching them how to work through any challenge and any problem. Because as we saw in the video, we don't know what the jobs are going to be 5 years from now. But we need to give our kids the skills and the opportunities to be ready for whatever's going to come next for them. And we really feel by moving forward with a focus on infrastructure and really start planning for those next steps that we're in the right direction. So we're excited. The technology committee really had a breakthrough this past month on making the connection between the essential skills as well as the ISTE learning standard, the national technology standards, and really how we can go forward with making a manageable goal to really align to our current instructional technology plan. So over the next part of the presentation, you're going to hear some of our suggestions and our really initial thoughts. So we want to change our really environment from looking like this, which we're all so used to, and to something that looks along these lines where you have interactive stations that allow for personalized learning, where the students can provide feedback to each other as well as receive feedback from the teachers. Use the technology to supplement and augment what they're doing in their day-to-day operations of the classroom. We don't want technology to completely replace what teachers are currently doing, because we have a lot of great things that are happening. We want technology to augment it and support it and give them the opportunity to use this as they continue to build the skills to go forward. One of the other things that we're starting to see is this mobility type picture that's on the right. This was from a school that we visited that has the ability to take this mobile classroom and move it anywhere, where it has a projector hooked to it so the students can hook in their device and demonstrate their work for the other students in their class. Or they can do it to have conversations about what they've learned, to really develop their own skill to persevere and to demonstrate that resiliency. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian just to talk about what our allocations are as well as the overall plan, and then we'll go back to what we're going to be looking at.
Sure. So what you see right now is the overview of exactly the steps and stages the district will have to go through to access our money. Our allocation is $4,432,162. So the first step is an approval of a preliminary Smart Schools program, or plan, excuse me. The District Technology Committee needs to be involved in the planning. We have done that. We touch on it at every Technology Committee meeting we have. There needs to be a Board of Education workshop and a public hearing. We are doing that presently. The preliminary plan that we've developed has to be posted to the district website for 30 days. We have to have some kind of vehicle or mechanism where there's public comment. So we'll have a database where people can go and insert comments that get sent to myself and Brian for review based on the plan that's out there. Conduct a hearing for preliminary plan comments, approval of a final plan by the Board of Education, and final plan posted on our website, and that will then be submitted to the state through the portal system. It's an electronic submission. Sure. Yeah,
Sure.
right ahead.
That 4.4 million, I mean, if you just do the simple math, it's about 2.6 million if you took the 700 districts, and did your division there. You turn around, how did we get it? Is it based on student size?
Correct.
District size?
Yes, it was based on, I believe, I could be mistaken, I think it was based on either the 12-13 or 13-14 official bed state data.
Okay, thank you.
So in July 2015, we had our initial review, because in June, really end of June, beginning of July, is when we finally got something from state ed, some guidance documents that came out and said, this is the process you'll have to follow, like that's similar to the process on the last slide. So in September, we've reviewed with the technology committee of what we wanted to do. And I was adamant from the beginning, we cannot buy devices with this. This was a bad idea to spend money on devices, because all we're going to do is create a $4.4 million hole for ourselves in 3, 4, or 5 years of all these devices that have to be replaced. So when we first started brainstorming, what can we do to make our money go further for the district and really help support us? So that was the only kind of, I guess, would you say, charge we gave to the committee and to the groups that we talked to, was say that is kind of a non-starter, because it just doesn't make financial sense. And it was kind of vindicated last week, last month at a New York State ASBO conference. Chuck Saberla presented, and he said they want to know specifically what districts are buying devices for the sole purpose, because they're not going to borrow for them. They're going to find a different avenue of financing for that. So even they've realized that financing devices over long term just doesn't make good financial sense. So tonight we are doing our presentation and public hearing for comments. December, January is what we're pegging for online comment period. Hopefully by January 21st, we'll have reviewed all the public written comments and have a final plan for board adoption, and then submit the plan to New York State. Our March to June purchase and implementation, it's variable right now, it's very tentative, because the group that is approving them meets 4 times a year, once per quarter. They haven't set the dates when they're meeting, so we're hoping maybe if we submit a plan by January, sometime in the first 3 months, they'll get to it before March. So we're hopeful that we could get approval in the first quarter. So many of the things we're going to do will be streamlined. Half of the items we're going to do will need facilities planning review. It requires some more intensive capital construction, you might say. Yeah.
We're going along.
Yeah.
You just said we'll never buy one-on-one devices
With this money.
with
I'm
this
sorry.
money. But when I look at Mike's homeroom pictures, the original pictures, Mike Cephalo's homeroom pictures, it's like early 1900s, to the latest technology pictures of classrooms, and you're saying a lot of these jobs these students don't have is going to require, they're not even created yet. My question to you then is how many one-on-one devices do we have in the district now, and aren't we eventually going to be at 100% devices somewhere along the line? Are you saying that not using this money on the devices now, it's bad because of the amount of money we have to pay back on those at this point? Are we going to get cheaper money down the road to buy these devices? Because once you go to one-on-one devices, every 3 to 4 years, you're going to replace them anyhow. So we're eventually going to be there. So where's that money going to come from then?
Right. We have a mechanism already through BOCES where we have a self-sustaining process.
Okay.
That the devices could be purchased. It's just if we pulled away from that and used this money for devices,
Right.
That's not BOCES aidable, would create a hole for us.
Gotcha. Okay.
And plus, the initial thought was you're really bonding the devices over 20 years with this plan. Recently they just came out with the indication that they were going to use another funding source to bond them over a shorter period of time. So that's why initially we said it doesn't make sense. We're going to take a 3 or 4 year device and bond it over 20 years. That to me was a little ludicrous when we know our devices are not lasting that long currently.
Okay. Thanks.
So, right, a lot of this is tentative right now as far as when will we get approval from the state, how long will it take facilities planning to really streamline, because we do have to engage an architect and have drawings made up of some of the areas that we're going to expand to for wireless coverage, where wiring needs to go, things of that nature will need a little bit more in-depth. They're pointing in the direction that it's not going to be your classic facilities planning, wait in line for 8 months. If an architect says new cameras going there on a diagram, they'll take it and go with it as long as there's nothing, earth-shattering or something that would cause concern for them to require further review. So we're hopeful for this timeline, but knowing full well, we could be pushed back farther.
So one of the things, just to go back to your point, Mike, about the one-to-one, we hopefully want to get there as a district, but one of the things that we have to do in order to get there is we have to make sure that our engine, our full infrastructure is the top of the line, that it's going to provide those experiences so that when a teacher and a student powers on that machine, everything is going to work for them. So we decided as a group and as the technology committee to really start looking at our infrastructure, because we want to make sure that we not only have the ability to have every student on in the district at once, but it's going to work and it's going to be sustainable. That includes our guest network. That includes all of the different networks that we have. We want to provide a better experience overall, that when we turn it on and it's ready to go. Feel very comfortable with what our current situation is and our current infrastructure, but I know that we want to build for capacity not for tomorrow, but for 10 years down the road. And we know that the technology is only going to change. It changes so rapidly that we want to be thoughtful and mindful of our community residents, that we're not saying we're going to do this now and then 3 years have to come back and do it again. So we're trying to be very cautious of that. So as we began to review this, we said we need to do a needs assessment of our infrastructure. So currently we've been working with Anise and Associates, who just recently completed our phone project, and we're asking them to conduct a wireless and network assessment. They're currently working on that. That's really going to help us determine what our needs are going forward. Part of it for me, for our team, is it's just a good look at what we've currently done. Our past network was put in about 5 years ago, and it's just a good time to look and say, what's going well, what do we need to improve on? And that's going to be our driver of where we go with the infrastructure work with our proposed plan. The one major area that we know we need to add capacity on is our Clem North, Clem South, and Plank North and Plank South buildings. All our Clem North and Clem South are together in one network area. Plank North and Plank South are all together in one network area. So we have limited opportunity to add capacity there. So what we ultimately want to do with those buildings is add capacity in each building, add server racks in each building, so that we can, down the road, if we want to add more devices, if we want to add more network cameras, add more capacity for our kids to get online, we have the opportunity to do that. Right now, I'm looking at our Clem North, Clem South closet. We currently have 4 network ports left, which means currently we can only plug in 4 more, either wireless access points or different computers for our students. So we're reaching capacity in some of our areas, and we want to make sure that I want to have 20, 25, so that in 5 years from now, when we go to add more, when we need to add more, we have the ability to do that. So we're taking a really, really comprehensive look to say, what do we need to do here? Because it's extremely important that the engine's working. If not, everything we try to do in the future is really going to come back to haunt us, and we don't want that for our kids or our staff as well. So
We also want to avoid when one goes down, so does the other one, because that issue has popped up on a couple of occasions, where an issue at Clem South has caused Clem North to lose its ability to get out on the internet. Any questions on infrastructure?
This includes capability of district-wide communication. So say, just for the heck of it, you have Plank South wants to have a teacher gear up and do a co-teach with somebody at Schlegel, or opposite ends of the district. And is there capabilities for that to take place between classrooms?
Yeah, we are initially targeting rooms at the secondary level
Okay.
to do, kind of something with the electives that maybe down the road can, offer at one, save the time.
The reason I mentioned at the elementary level is everything's getting pushed down. I mean, children are learning now in 4th grade what we learned in 8th. And, so that's why the lower you can push it, as soon as you can push it, the better that happens.
Understood your question.
So by adding capacity, we're going to be able to do that, where ultimately what we want to do is have 8,500 kids on YouTube at the same time, because YouTube is one of the highest draining pulls on our network,
Right.
where they're streaming video or we're trying to upload video. As you know, in your home environment, anytime you go to upload video or download video, it slows down.
Okay.
So to do those online collaborative approaches across buildings, we need to have the density and the capacity. We're pretty close. We are pretty close. Right now, we're slated to hold about 4,500 to 5,000 kids on YouTube at all time and have good experiences.
Are there safe places within our district property to put up necessary transmission powers to make that happen?
We do that right in our network closets, so we add capacity at our individual port switches, which then will add access and really more power to the network boxes that we see on the wall.
Okay.
So ultimately, what we need to do is take a network box and place it in every classroom, so that when we have 30 kids in that room, those are the only 30 students that are hitting that point to give them the best experience. Right now, we're pretty close. In our last network assessment, we did it where all of the hallways, some of the rooms have it based on their dead zones. We want to add now wireless access point to every room, so there's no opportunity for a dead zone. So you have, if the one in the classroom goes down, then the one in the hallway would be the backup, or vice versa. So there's always that
Close
connectivity.
proximity, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
we're going to add capacity that way.
Okay.
And one of the other areas that we could spend money on was safety and security upgrades. And so we thought this is a great time to really look at what we need in those areas. Because really, all 11 buildings we have, it's an investment. You know, we pour significant amount of time, effort, and money into maintaining our facilities, and we want to protect them as much as we possibly can. So one of the things we came up with is brainstorming some ideas of what we would like to do that would, you know, really improve the safety and security of our buildings. So we want to increase the key card readers at outside access doors. Rekey all the outside access doors. You know, over several years, a lot of keys possibly could have grown legs and walked away. You know, a coach here, a coach there, former staff member. And so I think there's a time, and now's the time where we could look at, okay, we redo the whole district and really put a system in place that controls who has key access and move towards the badge key carding in to really limit who has access to our buildings in this day and age. New internal door hardware, so teachers won't have to, if there is a lockdown or emergency, don't have to go outside to lock their door, that the hardware could be all manipulated from inside. The significant amount of our doors would need to be totally replaced or redone with the hardware to create those internal locking mechanisms. I know Blaine and Neil are going around currently and doing an assessment of all of our buildings of what would need to be replaced and upgraded. So we do have some initial cost estimates on that. Replace some of our outdated outdoor security cameras. Add additional outside security cameras. You know, we know where we have dead spots and want to cover those now. Replace indoor security cameras, especially at the secondary level. Some of those are getting close to their age. We could utilize the money for those. You know, it might seem like, well, they're not quite like a device when you replace it, because our security cameras, you could get about 10 years out of them and be happy with them. So it's not something that we're going to have to do 3, 4, 5 years like a tablet. So, you know, devices like security cameras we feel are a better investment. Add additional indoor security cameras to main office areas at elementaries as an added protection, so you have visual on who's walking into the buildings. We're also looking at adding in the main hallway corridors too at the elementary levels. Many of them do not have those as well. Any questions on some of the safety or?
Districts tried this to your knowledge to where we're going to understand if some of those safety things are on the bubble of possibly not being agreed to? Or do we think they'll all fall in line with this?
They've already, you know, part of the process, and I'll take a step back, is to even submit our plan, I had to submit a letter of intent to facilities planning, very similar to how we do any capital project.
Okay.
We fill out a letter of intent, say, this is what we're thinking about doing. You don't put cost estimates or anything on it. This is what we're thinking about doing. Here it is. They send us back a project number. So before we even started writing a plan or coming up with ideas, we brainstormed. I threw it all on paper, asked for everybody's input. Did I miss anything? Sent it to facilities planning. They marked it up, gave us our project numbers, and said, this is good. This will fall under a streamlined. This will fall under something that we're going to have to take a little closer look at.
Okay.
So will the reimbursement come as the work is done, or does it come at the end of a particular time period?
So we will obviously have to front the funds for this. Mm-hmm. So say we go into the summer and we are able to do all the cameras, and that costs, you know, X amount of dollars. We pay the X amount of dollars, we take all our documentation, submit it to the state, and they said within 90 days they will approve the payment back to us.
Well, that will be a surprise.
So is that,
Yeah.
is that outside of our budget process then?
Yes,
Totally.
yes. It's
So it's
totally
not
accounted
included?
for in a separate fund. It's almost like a grant.
Okay.
So the general fund would
So we'll just borrow from
borrow
ourselves
from
and
the different
then
funds to
get reimbursed?
get reimbursed, yes. This, for us, a bigger district with some reserves, we're able to do this. Some of the smaller districts will probably have to actually go borrow the money because they don't have the cash flow for it
Right.
to front money.
Maybe we can loan some.
So some of the other things that we've done is because we're not 100% completed with our wireless assessment, working with the other groups, we came up with a list of some other areas that we'd want to look at if our financial abilities arise. So one of the things would be to upgrade our current technology for the fine arts. Currently, we really invest heavily in the Mac Lab platform for our arts and music, which align to curriculum standards that happen in college and in career fields. Our current technology for that area is about 5.5, 6 years old. So we'd want to go out and be able to provide them with that highest level of experience and highest level of equipment to help the students move forward. One of the other recommendations with the groups is through our phone system, we developed some shortfalls as well as far as our PA systems, our actual physical address systems that we'd want to look at. Right now in Spry, that we know that our PA system does not work well. And so we'd want to address that. Some of the elementary schools work extremely well. Willink works extremely well. But we do have some pitfalls and downfalls at schools like Spry and Schrader, where, especially in this building, the new part, if you go to use the PA, it's going to blow the speakers in the Blue Hall. So we want to make sure that we're looking at that area to really provide, to support that safety experience as well, as Brian just finished sharing. The next thing that we're looking at is for the past 3 years, we've been implementing the Red Cat sound reinforcements for our elementary schools. What the Red Cat is basically a surround sound TV bar that gets put in the room where the teachers have a microphone that amplifies the sound to help students learn. And it really helps for all children and not just for our special ed population, but we know with our youngest learners in that type of environment, it's hard for them to hear, and it's hard for them to hear the clarity. So this really provides a clear experience for our teachers as well as our students. So much so that we've seen our teachers now, when they're having students share out information, they're passing the second microphone around so that the students can hear their other colleagues as they're presenting the material. We're finding it to be a great experience. So one of our recommendations with that is that as part of this proposed plan, Penny Money, we'd like to increase our ability to provide this in 4th and 5th grade. So at that point, all of our elementary schools would be covered with the Red Cat reinforcement system. One of the other areas that we'd like to look as part of this proposed plan is upgrading our multimedia rooms. So our AV TV rooms are in the plus of 15 years old right now. They were started, we were cutting edge about 15 years ago at Thomas and Schrader with the equipment. Now we're in equipment that is in dire need of repair, where we'd want to move into the HD field for our kids to get that experience, to be ready to move on to fields of working at Channel 13, different news outlets, and really have that experience where not only our product is better, but the experience for our kids is better. So we're looking to expand on that as well. The last one, as we saw in the video, in really trying to move forward from that traditional row seating to that experiential learning type platform, we want to look at how we do that distant learning labs and really move our rooms into that element. Sort of like what you're asking, Tom, about having those opportunities where they can do a video in one place and have a conference and you're learning from across the world. We want to add on those experiences as part of this plan. Correct.
Advanced placement class, we don't have enough students in one building, maybe between the two you do.
Yep, and we've seen that model work extremely well when we visited some other schools, and that would really just allow us the flexibility to do that. So our students wouldn't be hindered because there's not enough enrollment at one place, but there is at another. And we know that right now we have some courses that would really benefit from that type of experience. So questions about some additional things that we're looking at as far as this proposed plan?
The PA system, I had one other question. Is there some way to include the telephone? some offices are closed or they're tucked away in, thank you.
We're looking at, trying to tie in all the existing PAs to the new VoIP phone system, actually, as part of this project. Because
Great.
one of my big safety concerns is the inability to, or the ability to only page from limited locations in any building in an emergency.
Thank you, John.
So, yes.
Thank you very much.
For any comments, so we can take some of them down.
When you were talking about the door locks, they're still manual. You don't have the ability, we wouldn't have the ability to remotely lock all the doors in the building. Okay,
It'll be manual. but
okay,
Right now, we have a considerable mixed bag of locks.
Yeah.
And we have buildings where the teachers have to lock the door with the key from the
oh,
hall.
so you just want to be able
I
to,
want to be able to slam the door shut and turn
Called the
the lock.
dormitory style. So
Right.
oh, okay.
That
But-
technology is available, but we would
probably
need a
very costly.
significant amount more than $4.4 million.
We are looking at, taking control with access control of locker rooms and, some of those facilities in the high schools for security and, internal locker rooms, the pool, those places where we have incidents of problematic behaviors and high usage. But
Right.
the
Okay.
technology to do what you're talking about is, it's out there, but it would be, yeah, we'd need a lot more money than what we have.
The access cards allow you to feed into a system that's gonna basically take your population every day, make sure that you know who's in the building, and so, basically take attendance.
It could someday.
Okay.
Just a quick question, do we still allow voting in the schools? I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
Yep.
so there are a few schools in November that are,
Yes. No, Thomas
Welling
and
does, and maybe Schrader.
Schrader. Thomas and Schrader are the only two that are still used.
We're looking at Willing, we're looking
Oh,
at
and
changing
Willing,
that.
yeah,
to
Willing
like
does
next
too.
year.
Willing does
Thought they
also.
were out in the vestibule though, but it's still open
And
access.
unfortunately, it's right after.
Right.
yeah, so they could get into the van. All right, thank you.
You know, excuse me. Oh, thank you. I've always been a little concerned. I know we do a good job during the day of checking people in and out, making sure doors are locked, but, our doors are open right now, and, there is that concern for security. How do you, step up your security efforts? So will any of these measures help us in that regard?
Yes and no. Directly, to get control of our buildings in the evening would be a pretty costly, continuous cost, because you're talking about personnel.
Personnel,
And we all know buildings like Schrader is going 6 days a
24/7
week,
almost, right?
16, 18 hours a day. And Sundays, Thomas's Field House is in use all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Some of the things we will be able to do, however, is once we put in all these new cameras and every camera has what they call an IP address, we can then work towards sharing all those cameras with the police department in their patrol cars. So an officer could go to a school, bring up the cameras and be looking at what's going on in the building at 3 in the morning if he needs to, or at 10 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night. There's some advantage along what you're talking about, where a custodian calls and says, I have a guy in my building that, I don't know where he went, but he's acting pretty strange. Law enforcement guys can get on and maybe find him in the building with the camera system. So there'll be some of those things that'll come out of this.
How costly is the rekeying? You said, I think, that was one of the things you were looking.
On the outside, it's not gonna be the most expensive part
Right.
of the process.
The only reason I ask is, do we have a time frame where we feel every so often buildings should just be rekeyed, period, for safety?
No, I would personally, I defer to Neil on this one, but I agree, I think once every 10 years is something that we should look at. But I think if we went to the electronic badge access for all of our buildings as the main way to get in, with a select few people that have key access for in case of emergencies, I think that would eliminate some of that need.
And what staff has that capability? Not our entire employee
Capability,
basis.
key-wise?
Just, yes, the access badge,
Well-
like, You know,
We're-
like the building principals obviously do. teachers,
Administrators, buildings and
administrators.
grounds and security personnel's badges will work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The real issue is, some of these buildings, key accountability 10 years ago was not what probably it could have been. And, we have keys out there that we really don't know entirely who has keys
Well,
for our buildings.
yeah,
And the
okay.
other fear is, people who have lost keys. So the less
Sure.
keys we give out, you lose a badge, I can turn it off at the computer in 20 seconds.
It
You
would
lose a
almost
key,
be desirable, I would think, to have
right.
that.
So when we rekey, we're gonna have some very strict key issuance policies.
Okay, good.
Where it's
Thank
gonna
you.
require some levels of approval beyond an office secretary or whatever to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. First one is, I didn't hear this, but are you guys putting security on the outside, like at, let's say, Plank North? Now I can go into the vestibule, and they buzz you into the vestibule, you're inside. It's not hard to kick that door open and go in and not buzz in. So my question is, are you gonna be doing key entry outside of that door, and is visitors gonna have to buzz in from the outside instead of the inside? Because those doors are a lot more solid than the ones inside.
Well, we hadn't planned on moving the entrance system to the outside. There are one of a couple ways we can look at that, because there's still some planning, is we can harden the interior doors too, and kind of accomplish the same thing, and make it so that we're not asking parents to stand outside in 5-degree weather with the buzzer, but the vestibule becomes a little bit more secure than it is right now. So that's part of what we're gonna look at trying to accomplish.
Your key entry for the employees, does that track their movement in and out? Does that keep a
Just
log?
in.
Just in?
Right.
Not out?
Not out.
Okay. I'll reserve my other question for later. So, that's too long.
Any other questions from the board? Brian, could you review for us the next steps if somebody in the community views this, how they can make a comment on this?
Sure, and actually, let me hand out the draft document for everyone. This is our draft of what we will be posting on the website tomorrow, of what our plan is. It's just a little bit more robust version of what we posted here. It follows a very rigid, I guess, platform. It's identical to what we actually have to submit through the portal. It goes question by question. I've included a blank copy at the end of what is submitted. On the first page there is a disclaimer. You'll notice on the submittal, I included the entire 11-page submittal that is out there for us through the state website. We're not completing all of it, so you'll see, because we're not expanding a UPK classroom, there's parts we could skip over. So our plan is really just for the 2 areas that we're looking to expend funds in. So that will take you step by step, or draft initial. The link is right there, my contact is right there. We're going to run it on our website for the next 30 days. It's a very simple link with a very simple text box where you just type in your comments, your questions, and they will get sent to Brian and I for review. And I think we're going to meet once every 2 weeks during the 30-day period, or sooner if we see the traffic is heavy and picking up, that there's a lot of questions, we might have to take a look at things.
Thank you.
Just one quick question. On page, well, it's this one.
Yes.
Yes, so when you engage stakeholders, you engage parents, students, teachers, and community members? All of them?
Yes.
Excellent. Great, thank you.
Since you guys are talking about security and putting new things in that beefs up our security around our buildings, obviously, Neil, you've probably done a lot of research on what we have in place compared to schools that have had attacks on them, as far as systems that they've had in place that maybe worked or didn't work. How does our school district match up to some of these places around the country in systems we have in place, and what are we doing to get to where we're up there?
I think we're in pretty good shape, understanding that, and as I've said to parents who have called, You know, if you want us to turn the schools into prisons and airports, we can do that at a tremendous cost. At some point in time, I still have to put 1,100 kids out on the bus loop, no matter what I do. And most of the incidents that have occurred outside of the horrific incidents in Sandy Hook, the individual responsible is in the building. They're students. They're not outsiders coming in. Even the colleges that have seemed to bore the brunt of a lot of horrible, horrible things lately are students that are on the property legitimately. So we've invested in hardware, but we've also invested in some more soft things. Safe School Helpline. Shelley and I are working and started training administrators on threat assessment and determining that the student, the idea behind threat assessment in 10 seconds or less is not did the person make a threat, but do they pose a threat? Because people make threats all the time, but do they have the means and the mental capacity, and are they really interested in, do they really pose a threat? And that it may involve law enforcement, mental health professionals, school counselors, principals, a whole raft of people. So we're getting there. We're in a pretty good place, but there are always things we can do better, and it's trying to balance making the kids feel safe and the staff feel safe without making them feel suppressed or overkill. So I mean, I think we're in a good place. We're better than we were, but there's always room for improvement. I would never say we're great, perfect.
So since some of that stuff happens inside, is there anything that you can put inside, like panic buttons and classroom panic buttons and, in offices? I mean, is it an expensive system? If something goes down, teacher can hit a button, they're
instant. Pretty expensive. I mean, the VoIP phone system in and of itself is a big upgrade, because now every staff member has a phone in their room. And that wasn't necessarily the case before. Now they can pick up a phone and call 911 themselves if they have to. And the new system, when they do that, alerts us by text message instantly that a 911 call's been made from that building. So if a teacher at Schlegel Road Elementary calls 911, Brian Zimmer, myself, and Blaine get text message telling us that a 911 calls, and the principal and the assistant, that a 911 call has been placed from classroom 72 right away. So that's a technology improvement that's pretty close. Button systems, and the police departments, they can't ring directly into the 911 center, so there's a big delay between those. It's similar to your home alarm system. Your home alarm burglar system has to go to a central station, and what do? They call you up and ask if your house is being broken into. And if you're not home, you don't know. Well, there's a 3, 4, 5 minute delay. That's kind of what that button system, it's gonna ring to the main office, who are then gonna say, geez, I don't know, we better go down there and find out what's going on. So it becomes, we've addressed it with a lot of radios. We now have 15 or 16 radios at every elementary school, so every grade level has a radio. So if they're outside or near the radio, they could pick up a radio and say, I have an incident, disruptive student down here, send me help. The high schools probably have 35 or 40 radios. Every security officer, every administrator, every house office, psychologists, nurses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we've done it a different way than buttons.
But maybe it doesn't go to the police, maybe it goes to your central office, okay, instead, on a panic button, because, listen, it's a school, it's not a home, you've got lots of people, you don't
Right.
have a few people, and it's quick and it's easy, and sometimes, listen, you never know what's going on, you might not be able to call. And now, again, you don't have automatic lockdowns on the thing, we're not a prison, but they can go to the next classroom, but if you hit a button, it's already sent that signal out, it goes to your office, and Neil says, holy crap.
There are some things we can look at. Unfortunately, with this project, we can't invest in software. So any of those kind of things that may end up being software driven, even on a computer, click a mouse, hit a button, we may have to look at doing through Brian and
Normal budgetary
process. So it's possible, but this is forcing us to buy things.
And we've also set it up, Mike, where if in an emergency, you're going to panic. Instead of having to worry about what's the number to the main office, they literally, every main office and every nurse's office is programmed right into the phone. The teacher just has to go and press a button, and it automatically goes to them. So we've taken multiple steps, so really the thought process when something bad is happening, that you just literally press a button and it's there for you. It's not 100% there yet, but it's like Neil said, it's better than what we've had with now phones in every single room, which we didn't have before.
I want to say you guys do a great job. I want to preface that. You got great centuries, you really good people in your office, and I'm telling you, how you guys handle buses going in and out, how you handle visitors coming out. I got to say, as a school district, it's very, very impressive. It really is, so nice job.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My people do a great job.
Other questions from the board? From the public? Thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy, you can stay if you want from that. We have another. Okay. Brian, do you want to look at this now, or do you want me to just leave it here, or you can sit?
Did everybody get a copy of the building condition survey handout? Should be a stack of them still over there.
It's coming. It's coming. Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't, it's not, I tried it 3 times while we were doing this, and it would never connect.
You want one for Bob? I don't think. I know when Mrs. Ford worked.
I didn't give you an updated one? I made a couple changes. You were with me when
I got it right here. You ready?
I bet he did.
Building conditions, sir?
Oh.